Hey everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday, our weekday podcast for busy, stressed out Christians who want to really find freedom and abundance and peace. I'm Liz Ferricks, and this is my husband, Evan.
Good morning.
We're so glad you guys are here with us on this wonderful Monday.
Yes, happy Monday. Happy beginning of the week.
Woohoo!
And also thank you for listening. Thanks for joining us, spending part of your week with us. We're so thankful for that and for your listenership. And we just ask that if you like the show, please share it with a friend or your pastor or your family member, somebody that you think would benefit from it. Our goal is to help people's faith grow through these principles of the CSCs that we talk about every week. They've been beneficial to us, and we pray that they would be to you as well.
So we do talk about the CSCs every week. They are adaptations of Peter Ralston's Tai Chi principles. Really, principles that we found written all over the Bible. They're being calm, surrendered, centered, connected, and complete. And they are the pathway to getting out of survival stress mode and into freedom and abundance and peace, where things are just amazing. Even though they're hard, they're still amazing.
Yes.
So this week we thought we'd do something a little bit different than normal. Usually we pick a topic and work our way through the CSCs, but instead we thought we'd work our way through the CSCs in literature.
Yeah, and some of our favorite books and parts of books we'll be sharing with you this week, and we'll be showing illustrations of how the CSCs work.
Yes. But one of the reasons why we are so passionate about literature is the way that it reaches into people's hearts. And Evan has a favorite poem about that.
Yeah, well, it's for literature. It's specifically about poetry. It's a poem about poetry, which is kind of good. But it's about art in general, I think, and especially literature and, maybe even
stories.
This podcast. Yeah, the way we talk about the world, it kind of illustrates how limited we are, but how important it is to do it anyway. So this is called Poetry is a Kind of Lying. It's by Jack Gilbert, and it goes like this. Poetry is a kind of lying, necessarily, to profit the poet or beauty, but also in that truth may be told only so. Those who admirably refuse to falsify, as those who will not risk pretensions, are excluded from saying even so much. Degas said he didn't paint what he saw, but what would enable them to see the things that he had. And I just laugh, especially that last line, or just the whole thing really, where it's like, because we're not God, this is what this poem makes me think about anyway, because I'm not God, anything I say to anybody is tainted by a lie of some kind. I'm not omnipotent, I'm not all-knowing, and I don't know the future, and yet we're called to speak the truth and to spread the gospel and to do to communicate with one another.
Right.
And that's how God's chosen to spread his message. And I just think that's an amazing responsibility, an amazing phenomenon to speak true enough because of the power of the Holy Spirit.
Right. Well, and I love the way that fiction especially kind of reaches into our hearts and helps us see ourselves better, see the world better, even though it's a fictional world. You know, we still, at least for me.
The world in the book is fictional.
Yeah, the world in the book is fictional, but it helps us see the outside world more clearly, kind of like cleaning off our glasses. It just gives us a better perspective, at least for me. A good book does.
Yeah. Well, and that's what he was saying about Degas, the painter. I mean, he's famous for painting dancers, and I'm sure other things as well, but he kind of had this ability to capture, like any great painting artist, to kind of capture light and movement in a way, it's not a photograph, and it's not like you're actually there watching the performance, but you see through Degas' eyes the stuff that stands out to him. And that's exactly what he's saying. He's saying, I'm not painting what I see necessarily exactly. I'm painting what I want you to see that I noticed. He didn't paint what he saw, but what would enable them to see the things that he had. We're doing that whenever we communicate. But yeah, especially, Liz as a writer, this podcast is a sort of art form, and music is a lot like that too. And that, that's poetry, where you're just trying to communicate something, but you have to kind of to package it somehow, because you can't get at the actual thing. It's so nebulous sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of the times we have, these guards around our heart. And so we're, whether that's just a result of overexposure and that's why pictures, of children in poverty-stricken areas, somebody will snap a great picture and it suddenly gets underneath those shields in our heart. Because even though we may have seen a million pictures of poverty-stricken areas, like that one just captures something that's essential and reaches us in a way that everything else hasn't.
Yeah. So I want to read one more poem by Gilbert, and then Liz has a book she wants to share too, and we'll connect it to calm here. All right. So this is called Music is in the Piano Only When It's Played. Again, by Jack Gilbert. We are not one with this world. We are not the complexity our body is, nor the summer air idling in the big maple without purpose. We are a shape the wind makes in these leaves as it passes through. We are not the wood any more than the fire, but the heat which is a marriage between the two. We are certainly not the lake nor the fish in it, but the something that is pleased by them. We are the stillness when a mighty Mediterranean noon subtracts even the voices of insects by the broken farmhouse. We are evident when the orchestra plays, and yet not part of the strings or brass. Like the song that exists only in the singing, and is not the singer, God does not live among the church bells, but is briefly resident there. We are occasional like that, a lifetime of easy happiness mixed with pain and loss, trying always to name and hold on to the enterprise underway in our chest. Reality is not what we marry as a feeling. It is what walks up the dirt path through the excessive heat and giant sky, the sea stretching away. He continues past the nunnery to the old villa where he will sit on the terrace with her, their sides touching. In the quiet that is the music of that place, which is a difference between silence and wildness. So one thing I like about poetry is that it leaves you with a lot of questions, and it kind of explores the mystery of whatever it is the poet is thinking about, because it's so hard to just even communicate a thought. But I liked a lot in there where it's just talking about
there's more
this otherness of life, like life's not going to work, or it's not having fun. There's this other thing that we all wonder about and strive for. And Gilbert's not a Christian, but I would say that the answers, and they're still mysterious answers, but they're found in God.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like, we can't really see the full thing. It's all of his examples are things that are not quite there all the time,
I think we can find a certain amount of calm in the mystery because we're trusting God and we're understanding our limited perspective as human beings.
Right.
I mean, so much of art and poetry is sort of trying to push through the veil and see what's on the other side, and I love that. Right. And yet, we're not really able to do it, but yet we try.
Yeah. Well, and there's growth in the trying. I love that. So, on calm days, we often talk about how when we're stressed out and overwhelmed, it shuts down our brains. It shuts down our reasoning center, our creativity, our problem solving, all those kinds of things. So I just wanted to show an example of how calm can change our lives. This is from The Lost Prince by Frances Hodgson Burnett. If you have not read it, go read it. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite books. This is what I'm going to say every day this week.
Yeah.
But the main character, Marco, is about 12 years old at this point, and he is a large boy, but he's very, big and strong, and one of the things that I love in this book is that he's very good at being still, and in that stillness, it creates room for people to be themselves. His father is the same way, and it's just amazing to me because it's another one of those, oh, look, see, this is how we relate to people, how we connect, all those kinds of things. But anyway, so one of the things that he's learned, though, is calm. Marco is walking through London. He's lived many different places, but right now they're in London. He hears these boys, and it says, the boys were not playing, but listening to one of their number who was reading to them from a newspaper. Marco walked down the passage and listened also, standing in the dark arched outlet at its end and watching the boy who read. He was a strange little creature, with a big forehead and deep eyes which were curiously sharp. But this was not all. He was a hunchback. His legs seemed small and crooked. He sat with them crossed before him on a rough wooden platform set on low wheels, on which he evidently pushed himself about. Near him were a number of sticks stacked together as if they were rifles. One of the first things that Marco noticed was that the boy had a savage little face marked with lines as if he had been angry all his life. "Hold your tongues, you fools!" he shrilled out to some boys who interrupted him. "Don't you want to know anything, you ignorant swine?" He was as ill-dressed as the rest of them, but he did not speak in the Cockney dialect. If he was of the riffraff of the streets, as his companions were, he was somehow different. Then by chance he saw Marco. "What are you doing there, listening?" he shouted, and at once stooped to pick up a stone and threw it at him. The stone hit Marco's shoulder, but it did not hurt him much. What he did not like was that another lad should want to throw something at him before they had even exchanged boy signs. He also did not like the fact that two other boys took the matter up by bending down to pick up stones also. He walked forward straight into the group and stopped close to the hunchback. "What did you do that for?" he asked in his rather deep young voice. He was big and strong-looking enough to suggest that he was not a boy it would be easy to dispose of. But it was not that which made the group stand still a moment to stare at him. It was something in himself, half of it a lack of irritation at the stone-throwing. It was as if it had not mattered to him in the least. It had not made him feel angry or insulted. He was only rather curious about it. Because he was clean, and his hair and his shabby clothes were brushed, the first impression given by his appearance as he stood in the archway was that he was a young toff, poking his nose where it was not wanted. But as he drew near, they saw that the well-brushed clothes were worn, and there were patches on his shoes. "What did you do that for?" he asked, and he asked it merely as if he wanted to find out the reason. "I'm not going to have you swells dropping into my club as if it was your own," said the hunchback. "I'm not a swell, and I didn't know it was a club," Marco answered. "I heard boys, and I thought I'd come and look. When I heard you reading about Samavia, I wanted to hear more." He looked at the reader with his silent, expressioned eyes. "You needn't have thrown a stone," he added. "They don't do it at men's clubs. I'll go away." He turned about as if he were going, but before he had taken 3 steps, the hunchback hailed him. "Hi!" he called out. "Hi, you!" "What do you want?" said Marco. "I bet you don't know where Samavia is or what they're fighting about." The hunchback threw the words at him. "Yes, I do. It's north of Beltrazzo and east of Giardassia, and they are fighting because one party has assassinated King Miran, and the other will not let them crown Nikola Iarovich. And why should they? He's a brigand and hasn't a drop of royal blood in him." "Oh," reluctantly admitted the hunchback. "You do know that much, do you? Come back here." Marco turned back while the boys still stared. It was as if 2 leaders or generals were meeting for the first time, and the rabble, looking on, wondered what would come of their encounter. And I love that because, he just stays calm and he's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And he doesn't yell at the rat, which is the other character. And throughout the book, Marco and the rat become best friends, pretty much brothers, and their lives are completely different because of each other.
Yeah.
They're both able to help rescue an entire country because of their work together. But if Marco had not been calm, had jumped into the, "I'm offended and you're so mean,"
Or started
and
throwing rocks back.
right, he could have,
Yeah.
because it was not fair of them to throw a rock at him first.
Mm-hmm.
But it's his calm that allows him to make friends, to connect to the situation, to stay present. Like all these different things that we talk about, calm is the cornerstone of them.
Yeah.
And if we don't have them, we don't have any of the others.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's amazing to just see the change in the rat from anger to curiosity to attraction.
Right.
Like, wait a minute, I want you around.
Right, exactly. And he doesn't, and it's because of his calm that he's not a subordinate. At the end where it says that 2 generals
Sure.
are meeting together, it's because he is able to stay calm, which, has that aura of confidence about it.
Well, and it's a stronger strength than the kind of intimidation power that the rat was
Exactly.
wielding over the boys before, with his superior intellect or whatever he had to hold over them. But yeah, then them combining their forces. Pretty awesome.
Yes. So, as I said, if you have not read The Lost Prince, go read it. But yeah, I hope that gives us a glimpse into just how powerful calm is, that it can transform our lives. And maybe it doesn't seem important in the moment. I mean, that meeting, it's just between two boys. I mean, who knows? It seems like it could be unimportant on the surface. But then by the end of the book, you're like, oh man, that was like a pivotal moment. And what if it had gone wrong? What if Marco hadn't been calm?
Yeah, right. Coming back to our limited perspective, we don't know. I mean, someone you meet now could have a significant place in your life 5 or 10 years from now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've formed friendships like that where I look back and I'm like, boy, like even 10 years ago, I didn't have this person in my life. And my goodness, I can't even really imagine that anymore.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing how life works. And it's amazing how God's sovereignty pulls us along in, the right direction.
Yeah.
Which is what we're going to talk about tomorrow with surrender.
It's a long episode today. But yeah, we wanted to introduce the idea of why literature is important, just to sum up now, I guess, and give a really great example of calm. And we'll be doing some other examples throughout the week. So we hope you come back and listen to those.
As always, pick whether today is going to be awesome or not, whether you're going to strengthen those neural pathways to look for the good things, strengthen the neural pathways to be calm, or whether you're going to stay in overwhelm and stay focused on the things that are negative, because your decision of what you focus on makes such a huge difference in your life.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see lots of examples of how that works in the stories this week.
Yes. We love you guys, and we are praying for you. Thanks to everybody that's been listening to the show and sharing the show. We really appreciate it. If you have found this episode helpful, please do share it with someone. And come back tomorrow, and we are going to talk about the sovereignty and betrayal of the gods.
Okay. All right, well, talk to you tomorrow.